Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for coming out to cover this severe weather event that really is statewide. I'll get into that more in just a moment. I'll make a few prepared remarks, and then Parish President Matt Jewell, I think, will have some remarks for you, and then I think Sheriff Champagne as well. And then, of course, when you ask questions, you can ask questions of the folks that you see up here. I do want to talk a little bit about what the state has experienced over the last couple of days. On December the 13th, just before dark, we had a number of tornadoes that moved across North Louisiana, and in particular, causing damage to Caddo Parish, Union Parish, Rapides, and Madison Parish as well. And there were two fatalities in the Caddo Parish tornado. And then that same weather system was a little delayed, the way it was angled moving across the state. And then yesterday, additional tornadoes in Iberia, here in St. Charles, but also in Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Bernard. The National Weather Service told us this morning that we can expect that at the end of the day, they're going to basically certify somewhere between 10 and 15 tornadoes in Louisiana, and they'll give more information as to what the strength of those tornadoes was. The early indication here is that the tornado that came through St. Charles was an EF2, which, by the way, I'm not even sure what the distinction is, because we've seen twos and threes, and they're all awfully powerful and destructive. Very sadly, we now have 3 storm-related deaths. We have a 30-year-old lady and her 8-year-old son up in Caddo Parish, and then a 56-year-old lady here who was killed in her home in Killona. And obviously, this is extremely tragic. A number of other folks who have been injured and remain hospitalized. Most people who have been treated at the hospital across the state have been released. And when I flew over Killona a short while ago, it was obvious to me and to all of us that had the tornado come through just another couple of hundred yards from where it did, the results would have been much, much worse. And then had it come through a couple hundred yards on the other side, then perhaps nothing. And that's the nature of a tornado. It's very different from a hurricane and other natural disasters because of the way that they move, and the band of destruction can, in most cases, is only a few hundred yards wide. So we can say that based on the level of destruction we've seen across the state, that we were blessed to not have more loss of life and more injuries than we had. But if you're in one of those families who 10 days before Christmas, you just lost a loved one, or someone was hospitalized, or you just lost your home, then this weather event was as bad as it could get. And so I'm going to ask everyone to join me in lifting all these people up in prayer, but also doing everything that we can to quickly get their lives right side up, especially mindful that this has all happened 10 days before Christmas. And we have an awful lot of young people and older people as well who've been affected by this. I do want to take just a moment and thank all the first responders who did just tremendous work all across the state, particularly here in St. Charles Parish, where a shelter was actually opened ahead of the weather event itself. And several dozen people from St. Charles actually took advantage of that shelter ahead of the tornado. And then, of course, it was already open and operational to receive people in the immediate aftermath of the storm. But the search and rescue, and let me just tell you, there's never a good circumstance for search and rescue, but tornadoes are about the worst because you're not just searching a house that is intact. You're searching through debris, things that are unrecognizable, looking for our brothers and sisters and trying to get them to safety. So all of the law enforcement personnel, all of the fire department personnel, everybody who engaged in search and rescue. And I want to thank individuals, not necessarily public servants, but people who were right there being neighbors to one another, because we know that happened as well. So I want to thank, in addition to the folks here on the ground, the state partners. whether it's the state police, the fire marshal's office, the National Guard, which has deployed liaison officers around the state. Today I'm traveling with the Secretary of the Department of Transportation as well as the Secretary of the Department of Health as well. As I'm going to ask that people not go sightseeing. We all know that there were several homes destroyed in Montz, and there was a lot more destroyed in Killona, but it's not the right time to go sightseeing. There's still an awful lot of work that's happening. Debris is being removed from the property. There are lines, transmission lines that are down in terms of electricity, and new poles and new lines going up. Families are in that area trying to salvage what they can from their homes. And law enforcement, quite frankly, needs a break. So we're asking that people not go sightseeing. That's just going to add to the problems. I do want to mention very quickly generator safety for anybody out there who, for whatever reason, doesn't have power or is going to be using a generator. It is often the case that carbon monoxide kills more people after a storm than does the storm itself. So please use that generator safely. Make sure it's at least 20 feet from your home, that it's outside, well ventilated, and don't refuel a hot generator, and certainly don't refuel one that's running. Turn it off, let it cool off for about 20 minutes before you refuel. If you receive damage to your property, please report that damage to damage.la.gov. That's damage.la.gov. This is not an application for assistance, and I want to be very clear about something real for just a moment. I issued a state declaration. That means that state agencies, personnel, equipment, and resources of the state of Louisiana are going to be made available to respond to and recover from these tornadoes. We don't believe as of right now that we will meet the thresholds necessary to secure a federal declaration, and we don't believe that federal resources, including individual assistance, will be made available for this storm. We don't right now believe that public assistance will be made available, but we are going to be capturing all of the damage estimates, and if we are able to clear the thresholds that are required in order to get assistance, we're going to do that. But having said that, the state of Louisiana is going to do everything we can to partner with your local government here to speed assistance, whether it's debris removal, whether it is temporary housing, you name it, in order to get people right side up again just as quickly as possible. But I did want to say that so that we don't have people expecting some type of assistance or relief that's not going to come. But what we already have on the ground, Catholic Charities, the United Way, multiple faith-based organizations, churches, and so forth. And so there's an awful lot of relief that is already being provided to those people who've lost their homes. And I am very much appreciative of that. So I'm going to ask the parish president to come up and make some remarks, and then the sheriff, and then after that we'll take your questions.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks for being here today. We had a very productive meeting on the logistics of this recovery, and today really starts the beginning of that recovery from these from the tornadoes that we saw, which devastated 2 areas of our parish yesterday. Parish officials, including government employees, sheriff's deputies, first responders, the fire service, they did a remarkable job. I am so incredibly proud as the parish president. How we responded both proactively to this weather system and after the tornadoes touched down. So I just wanted to first say thank you to all of those agencies involved that were a part of that response. Some statistics: we had 55 total structures damaged, 45 in Killona, 9 in Montz, 24 we're considering major, which means the building or structure is compromised. 21 are uninhabitable. Our focus now is to ensure that our residents have exactly what they need for the cleanup process. We're prepared in doing the initial assessments for debris removal, but we also know our residents need time to go through their possessions and get their possessions in order. And now we know the holidays are coming up. We have colder weather here. As the governor said, it's going to be very important that our residents have some of the basic necessities like housing, clothes, and basic supplies. We're working with the Red Cross, the United Way, Catholic Charities, other local partnering agencies, faith-based groups to provide assistance for our residents in need. Residents who are in need, we are encouraging them to call the Emergency Operations Center here at 985-783-5050. Additionally, people who want to make a monetary donation, we're asking them to make a monetary donation through the United Way of St. Charles, and they can do that by visiting uwaysc.org/SCPT tornado. If you want to donate tangible items, we're accepting the following items: Walmart gift cards, blankets, throws, children's clothing and adult clothing of all sizes, specifically sweatshirts, sweatpants, socks, t-shirts, new undergarments, personal hygiene items, bottled water, and juice boxes. If you want to donate those items, you can drop them off on the West Bank at the Edward A. Dufresne Community Center, which is at 274 Judge Edward Dufresne Parkway in Luling, and on the East Bank at the Allen Arterberry Building, which is at 14565 River Road in New Sarpy. Again, I want to thank all of our government employees, our emergency responders, and the Sheriff's Office for their work during the initial response and for the work to come in the recovery. It truly takes a team of people to make this happen. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over. And I want to say thank you to our parish council members, our state representatives who have been supportive in this process along the way. They're part of this team, like our first responders. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff to talk a little bit about security.
Thanks. I'll be brief. Thank you, Governor, for coming also today, and our legislators and all our councilmen, several here behind us. I'll be brief. As the people, and I'm speaking to the people in Montz and Killona. As you saw last night, we had light plants in, deputies around the clock at all the choke points. You don't have to worry about sightseeing, Governor, because they can't get in. We're going to stop them before they get there. So we will have deputies at all the choke points where nobody will be allowed in unless you can prove that you live there and you have business there, so all the residents can be comfortable that we're going to be protecting your property, or unfortunately in some cases what's left of it. It was just within the last hour and a half that Entergy declared the area, I know in Killona, safe enough to where residents could go try to salvage valuables, and I think some of them are doing that, but we are going to be there around the clock until further notice, until it's safe for us to leave. So you can feel comfortable if you live in those two areas in Montz and Killona. We'll have deputies watching your place and watching you around the clock from here on out. Thanks.
Okay, so in just a few minutes, I'll be taking my team from the state, and we're going to go to Gretna, where we'll be meeting with officials from Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Bernard parishes. And so we do have a schedule to keep, but we will take a few questions if you have them, and again, feel free to direct your question at any of the folks standing behind me.
Do we know how many people were sent to the hospital and how many are still currently in the hospital, and if the death toll is expected to rise?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith. Yeah, I think 6 or 8.
Yeah, so we have 6 people that were transported to the hospital. We have one here in St. Charles Parish. We have one that is still here locally, being admitted to the hospital, and then one that was transported out to Oxford Main campus. None are, they're all in stable conditions at this moment.
That's just for St. Charles Parish?
Yep.
The numbers you just gave, so 6 people injured, 1 in the hospital locally in St. Charles Parish, 1 who was transported to Oxford.
Correct.
Were any of them children?
One was a child, yes. That was the one that was transported to Oxford Main. There were 2 more kids that were treated and released.
And then you said that right now they suspect it was an EF2 tornado that came through Killona?
Yeah, that's what we've been told. Now that is preliminary. The National Weather Service, they send out teams to survey, and then they will give it an official category. But we've been told to expect this one to be an EF2. The Caddo Parish tornado was also an EF2, and the Union Parish tornado in Farmerville was an EF3. And the point I'm trying to make is that's almost a distinction without a difference, because the level of just sheer devastation that I've seen has been the same in all three of these parishes because of the tornadoes.
Well, Governor, I was going to ask that too. You've done so many flyovers after storm after storm.
Yeah.
What are you seeing today? Now you've gone through multiple parishes. What was that like?
Yeah, well, look, it's tough, but not tough for me. Tough for the people who live there, people who've lost their homes, people who've lost a family member or sustained a serious injury. And you know, we kind of were so thankful, and we should have been, that we had the best hurricane season in 31 years. The people here in St. Charles, they know how tough Hurricane Ida was last year, and that was the fifth hurricane in 2 years during the pandemic. And so we were all thankful that we had that great hurricane season, and then we turn around. I don't know if at any point in the past we've gone through what, somewhere between 10, 15 tornadoes in a 24-hour period. But the people of Louisiana are tough and resilient, and we know how to be neighbors to one another when folks need help. And the faith-based community and our charity organizations are just tremendous. So I think that makes us all feel just a little more confident that we're going to meet the needs of the people of Louisiana. But the devastation has just been tremendous, and you almost feel like, unlike a flood or a hurricane where it comes across in the area of devastation and the impacted area is so huge, you know, the destructive path of these tornadoes is in most cases a couple of 100 yards wide. And I can only imagine we've got people in Louisiana wondering today, why me? You know, because you go down the street and a house is on one side of the street, looks like absolutely nothing happened. The house on the other side of the street's gone, and the person who lived there is dead. And so these disasters are really tough, and that's why I'm asking that we really take extreme care of our fellow citizens, our brothers and sisters, because of what they just went through, and knowing that it's 10 days before Christmas. You know, so let's make sure that we do everything we can to lift them up. Yeah.
Yeah, just before we depart or finish questions, I want to take the opportunity for everybody at home watching to keep Allison Raymond Alexander, our resident who passed away yesterday in this tornado, to keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Keep her family and her extended family in your thoughts and prayers. You know, we work incredibly hard to try to alert people as quickly as possible to prevent the loss of life, and unfortunately, in this case, we tragically had one. So just remember, you know, being this close to Christmas, that we want to keep those families and her in your thoughts and prayers.
Thank you. Matt, we're with you for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.